Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, of course, Jeremy Finestone. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. We have had 5 shows since the last time we talked here. We had a pay-per-view from California that had a lot of news involved in it. It was a very good show, if not too long. We had 4 nights of the Super Junior tournament, so we have plenty to talk about this week. Jeremy, I feel like I have seen a lot of really good New Japan wrestling this week, and some news overall that is a very mixed bag of good and bad. So it's been an intriguing week to be a New Japan fan.
If I wasn't so infuriated about some of the things that are Resurgence and going into Dominion, Best of Super Juniors has honestly been a delightful palate cleanser to all of the bullshit. And I've just been riding it, man. 5 matches here, 5 matches there, a couple of days of 10 matches. For one day there, I think day 2, that was just like, oh man, they are not holding back now. And I think we have a tournament on our hands.
Super Juniors almost always over delivers. It kind of sneaks up on you. It's just before Dominion. It's in this little zone there in the beginning of the summer, and yet you look at the lineups and every year and you just think, oh, okay, well, there are going to be some really good matches here, and then everybody kind of builds on that. They don't want to have the worst match on the card. No one does, so they push each other, and by the end of this, year after year after year, this is one of the most satisfying, if not consequential, tournaments. Certainly the G1 is a bigger deal overall. It decides who main events the Tokyo Dome, etc. But Super Juniors is just a satisfying set of shows with really talented guys who really do turn it on and push one another. We're seeing that, and we've seen a couple of people come in that weren't expected to be in this tournament that have done great. And I'm not just talking about how they're booked, but how they're wrestling. And, some of the people that are the traditional storytellers and masters of the craft are absolutely living up to the billing. I at least that part of it is going well.
There is a talent and there's a floor in the talent and quality of the performers and the Super Juniors this year that I think has not been this high in a while. We talk about ceilings a lot, like what the potential is, but you don't really talk about the bottom, the floor, like what like where we're starting at. And man, everybody's just got a fire under their ass on everybody so far has had a match, and we're three matches in for everybody right now, and every single one of them you can just say, hey, if this is your guy, this is the match to check out. There is something for everybody, and you couldn't say that the last couple of years of the Best of the Super Juniors going into the first couple matches. Even Show with the Ninja Mac match that they had the other day, or this morning, I think it was one of the last 2 days, the Ninja Mac show.
It was today, yeah.
It was honestly a delightful House of Torture match. Like the way that they went about it and some of the stuff that they did, it was different. It was different than the things that they usually do. And we'll get to it at some point. But it's just, there feels like an imagination and a curiosity and a level of fun in the Best of Super Juniors that is kind of missing in WWE, is kind of missing in AEW, has been missing in New Japan. And I'm just kind of here for the ride and the fun.
Well, we're going to be taking a look at the Best of the Super Junior tournament, both the A and B blocks, and we'll break down who's in the lead, who's trailing behind, a couple of surprising names there, and some stories being told, and we'll get to that. We're also going to break down Resurgence. We're going to do that first, just because Resurgence a few days ago, I know, but it leads to a lot going forward. A lot of things came out of Resurgence that are going to culminate at Dominion. So we're going to go right into that show and start with that, because just storyline wise, this was heavy on things. It was a 5-hour show, 5.5 hours. No, it was about 5 hours, I think.
Did it have to be a 5-hour show?
Goodness, no, it did not. This was a long night, especially after watching Super Juniors in the morning. That was quite a bit, but
I was an hour away. Like, I could have gone to this show, and by 3.5 hours in, I was like, the show isn't ending anytime soon, and I don't want to drive back. I'm glad I'm exactly where I am watching the show.
It began with Matt Vandegrift and Adrian Quest in the Strong Survivor match. This is simply a thing where if you win the match, you get to be on the next Resurgence show. It's or not Resurgence show, next Strong show. Pardon me. Matt Vandegrift has won all of these, and he won this one too against Adrian Quest. It was fine. It was fine. Afterwards, Vandegrift said something about how what he's doing isn't enough. I agree, and that he might need to find something different, something new. Yeah, all right. I mean, I'll give him a chance. He's talented physically. He's a good wrestler. There is just something that
missing. Like he hasn't put it together. Like there's just something there that like you all see that he's good. He can go in the ring, but his promos don't light you on fire. No. He's not a rousing babyface. Even when he's in peril, you don't really like. He doesn't connect, and I don't know what it is. But he's getting a lot of opportunities to do so. And I feel like he's exactly the same position that he was in last year, doing these matches that he is right now.
I agree with you, but they must see something in this dude, right? I mean, they keep putting him out there. So somebody in the LA dojo or with the company really believes in Vandegrift. So I guess we'll give him a chance and we'll see. Maybe if he shakes things up, we'll see what they see.
It's not my call to make, but he's got to lose one of these matches one of these days, and I'm still not at the point that I care if he does win or lose.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's a low stakes thing.
It's a project. Yeah. He's a project, and he's held down the opening kickoff for a while now.
Up next, we had Lio Rush and Mustafa Ali. So these are the two pre-show matches. They weren't officially part of the pay-per-view, although you still had to buy the pay-per-view to see them. So there you go. That's New Japan for you. But we had Ian Riccaboni and Veda Scott on commentary, by the way. Couldn't necessarily always hear them. They weren't mic'd well. Once again, the technical difficulties, man. I don't know why the Strong Crew can't seem to get this right. They can't mic a crowd, and then half the time Ian and Veda were tough to hear. Ian and Veda have pretty good chemistry. I think a little bit better than Veda and Walker at the moment. But the thing with them is just like sometimes you just couldn't hear them, and it's not like the crowd noise was overwhelming him because they were mic'd like crap. So boy, this match though was very well wrestled. It was entertaining. It was fine. Now, people were saying, why isn't Mustafa Ali in the Best of the Super Juniors? Well, it's simple because his gimmick is he can't lose at the moment. So you can't put him in Super Juniors unless he's just going to run the whole table, and that's not in the plans. So Ali's whole gimmick is that he's basically on this big undefeated run. He beat Lio Rush here, and then they went into this thing where Lio Rush went crazy and started barfing up black goo, and Lio Rush forgot he was in New Japan and thought he was part of the Alexa Bliss, Randy Orton Fiend angle. And so maybe he got hit in the head too far and transported himself into an angle he wasn't even in. That was garbage. I hated that. It looked stupid. It looked unconvincing. And it's two guys who don't need any of that. Their match was just fine. The garbage afterwards about how Lio Rush is changing personalities, save that shit for someplace else. I don't want it.
I was really looking forward to this match, right? Mm-hmm. Like, these are two guys that, like, okay, cut loose. You want to put it on a pre-show of a Resurgence, whatever. The fact that these two guys are going to go at it, I am here for it. I'll be honest with you, I was really let down by this match, and the post-match just pretty much led me to believe that this is building up to an actual match you'll have to pay for at, like, Capital Collision in Washington, D.C., maybe after the summer or something like that, because they're obviously leading you to something more. And they're putting Lio Rush in a position to get one over on Mustafa Ali when he can eventually lose. Because when Mustafa Ali won this match, he had his legs on the ropes. He did like the pin, and it was the cheap pin, and Lio Rush lost his shit because of it. But it was just like, it was a setup to something else match. It wasn't the match that you saw this advertised, you're like, oh shit, this could be rad. And it wasn't rad. It was a tease to tell you, oh, what's rad is coming. And I'm like, no, you are not in a position right now with these shows to advertise a match that doesn't deliver with guys like this and tell you, oh, hey, maybe we're going to get the real thing down the line. It's like, you are in a sense of urgency with this show and put these guys and figure it out. What you did wasn't it.
I think what they foreshadowed, though, was that this was going to be step one of a multi-step thing, just because they put it in the pre-show. If this were the match where these guys were just going to let it all hang out, so to speak, then that would be on the main card with these two.
And,
but,
I'm 100% with you on that. It's just, this was a long show. You are setting up something for the future. This did not deliver. And if you want to get people excited to come to these shows, you have to do more than this when you have it. Like, promising something for later. This is not Eddie Kingston and Gabe Kidd. Like, I'm going to beat your ass kind of thing. I can't wait for 3 months later. This is not that. And they're trying to use that. And it's not connecting at that level.
So on the main show, we had the first match that was mostly there to get people in the building because they were going to be necessary later. So this was a 6-man tag between the Chaos group of the DKC from the dojo there, Tomohiro Ishii, and Rocky Romero against Jack Perry, Evil, and Ren Narita from the House of Torture. Now, almost all of these guys would be busy later. But this match was fine. It was just a basic little opener. Evil won with the Everything is Evil. He beat Rocky Romero. And again, this match wasn't the important part. Almost all of these people would play a part later in the card.
When Evil hit the Everything is Evil, my ears perked up.
Well, yeah.
We've seen that formula many times before.
After that, we had Team Dirty Work, which was Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser taking on Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, the West Coast Wrecking Crew. And they had a match coming off the whole thing of Team Filthy breaking up, of course, and teaming with his rival, Fred Rosser. And this match kind of fell apart at times. It was not their best work. There were malfunctions at junctions. They were kind of running into each other and got lost a few times. In the end, West Coast Wrecking Crew just kind of rallied and beat up Rosser. They hit the flying elbow on Lawler to win. It was pretty decisive. They also cut some of Lawler's hair and fed it to Rosser. Ew. I suppose this was more to come and to just build heat for a rematch down the road right here. But I was surprised at how many hiccups and stops and starts there were in this match. It wasn't what these guys do best.
Felt like nerves. You had this big spot. You finally had your big tag team thing. You just want everything to go perfect, that you overthink it, and you just you make unforced errors, if you will. And I got a lot of unforced error vibes out of this match. Jordan Nelson and Royce Isaacs, they had their post-match angle, and they talked a great game afterwards. I do believe that these are two very viable tag teams. And once they get, their opportunities and they get the jitters out of the way, I think this is all going to end up fine, and they're all going to be in a better place in New Japan. I'm glad this is finally happening. We got some progression with a lot of long-term angles that have begun with the beginning of New Japan Strong years ago. So this is fun for the longest of long-term domestic New Japan watching fans, from the COVID era. And I can appreciate it for that.
Up next was the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team title match. This was the Gorillas of Destiny against TMDK. It was a terrific match. It didn't go long. It was only about 10 minutes. Both teams here have good teamwork. And of course, TMDK does. They've been together a long time. But Hikuleo and El Phantasmo have worked out some nice double team moves there. And they know how to work one another. They've done it quite a bit lately. The end came with a choke slam and the Thunder Kiss 86 finish, title change. Hikuleo and El Phantasmo took the titles back, and we are headed for a 4-way, which was teased at Dontaku, and it's been announced. So my question here is, does any of this really matter? I mean, sometimes I wonder if they just say, well, people want title changes, so these titles can switch around all we want. It doesn't really matter that much. And they take these titles, the IWGP titles and these titles, and they put them together. Then they're together for a little while, and then they get pulled apart, and then they come back together. 2 different times already, they've crowned double tag champions and then broken them up. And now they're going to do it again at Dontaku.
So they are doing it again at Dominion.
They're doing it again at Dominion, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the whole. Both titles are on the line, and whoever comes out is going to be double champ. That's what your reaction right there is. Mine now when it comes to any of these tag team belts. It's like, all right, whatever.
It's a social media championship, and I will tell you what I mean by that. In which the only people and the only way that people care are either watching the show or they see the announcement on X or Twitter or whatever that somebody was crowned a new champion. And then they go, oh, that's nice. And if they hear the match is good, they will go check it out. That is what these titles are right now. And that is unfortunate. Until we get to the World Tag League, It's not going to mean anything. It's frustrating as hell. It is absolutely frustrating to see them hot potato these tag titles back and forth here and there and everywhere. We sat here last week and we had this preview and we were like, yeah, it wouldn't really make any sense for TMDK to drop these titles, but at the same time, who knows what the hell that they're doing with these titles, so they might as well just give them to GOD, because why not? And when I saw the results of the match, I'm like, why not?
Whatever.
It was like they want to have every one of these teams have titles in their possession at some point going into this match, so that there is an open question of which one is the best and is going to walk out with all 4 of these titles. They have strategically made sure everyone has held some aspect of these titles going into it, so that there's not one like last one picked kind of mentality that you look at and think that there's a lesser. I see what they're doing there, but it's so haphazard and chaotic that it doesn't feel like anyone is getting any growth out of this story right now.
That's where I was going with it too, is I guess the only thing New Japan is really trying to do is tell us that these teams are so even, anyone could win. Well, in this sense, and this isn't always true, in this sense, the idea that these teams are so even and they've all held championships and anyone could beat the other at any time means that none of it particularly matters who beats who. I don't care who comes out of this with the double tag titles. I just don't.
What this really kind of leads to is
they're good teams
building up a tag team that is going to take these titles at Forbidden Door. Because you have all 4 of them fight with each other, and then they have the winner at Dominion go into Forbidden Door and challenge, I don't know, FTR again, or some other like cool ass tag team that they put together, and maybe they do a run. Maybe they end up going to the G1. Maybe something like that happens.
Remember how lousy that turned out when FTR was the IWGP Tag Team Champions?
Sure,
they just never showed up to they just never made the schedules work for them to defend them much.
But right now, you have a bloated AEW roster, right? And so if you were to find the right guys, and I don't know who the right guys are, but right now the tag division in New Japan is missing something. And if they are able to jumpstart that in a lesser fashion, because I don't like doing it with the IWGP title with Moxley. I'm not in love with it. I'm not in love with what they're doing right now. But you can do it with the IWGP tag titles or the strong titles and do something like that with a run in AEW, or have those guys come over and do a G run by having the titles. That's their invitation to do like the G1. There's a whole lot of nothing going on before they're going to focus on the 5 to 10 matches that they're going to have at Wembley at the end of August. So, it's like, who's not going to be focused at Wembley? Who can have a little bit of a trip at the G1? Could Jack Perry and another person, get the tag titles? Could Jack Perry and Ren Narita have the tag titles for a run together? All these Forbidden Door things that could happen. It's like, I'm trying to think of creative, fun ways to like inject some energy in it, because right now, unless you get another tag team that comes in and wrecks shop on all of these guys, we are spinning our wheels.
Dunstan said this tag division sucks. Hello, gentlemen. Hi, Dunstan. And we kind of agree. Do we think New Japan could learn from Hunter's booking of the NXT tag division back in 2016, 2017? You'll have to remind me what that is a little bit. If you're talking
Alpha
about
Academy, DIY,
that way before. Well, I don't know. But if we're talking about building up a champion that actually means something, then yes. I remember FTR. I happened to be at the show where they launched FTR. They were a team that was on the show, and they were in the Dusty Invitational. They had a house show here in Austin, and they beat the Vaudevillains, if you remember that team.
Do you remember what their first name was?
They were what's that?
Do you remember what their first name was?
Like the Mechanics or something?
The Mechanics.
Yeah. So they were they beat them in a non-title match, and then just went on to win the Dusty Classic, and then go on to win the tag titles and all that, and become FTR. So anyway. Some direction, if what you mean by that is the tag team, DIY, Revival, American Alpha, that was who it was, Gable and Jordan. The Yes, if they wanted to go to do something like that, that'd be great. But what that requires is dedication and direction, which we're not seeing. Like right now, we're just kind of seeing this. Oh, everybody can beat anybody else. So
you have a let's see where the dust settles and who's on top, and then this next team comes in, and we have a program that potentially ends after the G1. And then you can go or even goes into World Tag League. If you are, we remember from Dominion to World Tag League last year, the IWGP tag titles meant next to nothing. Like they were just kind of there. Once Aussie Open had to drop them, and then they went to AEW, they were forgotten about. And they've been kind of an afterthought since then. So we have an opportunity to inject some life back into this, and I'm just kind of hoping that this is the jump start, because it's not a sustainable direction long term, but it does get some interest back in the division.
Okay, we got to move along a lot faster with this card here if we're going to get through all this. We cannot be spending this much time talking
tag
about
titles. What?
NJPW Strong Women's Championship. Stephanie Vaquero over Alex Windsor. This was another pretty good match. I thought it flowed very nicely. It wasn't long, but it also never dragged. They seem to be establishing Vaquero as a dominant champion for now.
She is a dominant champion.
No immediate challenger, but they have time to do all that. And apparently we're getting some sort of a version of an American Fantastica-Mania, which I'd imagine she'll be part of. But Vaquero's a talent. Windsor is talented. And it's not time for Windsor to win that championship. It's just simply a time for Vaquero to establish herself and continue establishing herself. She did it. I liked it.
Windsor's not there yet, but she will be one day. She has a lot of talent and potential. I think Stephanie Vaquero's next challenger will be made clear after Double or Nothing.
Dunstan would like to see.
I think her Forbidden Door presence will be obvious.
Dunstan would like to see them in the 5-star Grand Prix for Stardom. I tell you what, I think Windsor would be a very excellent pick for that. I don't think Vaquero's going to go over, because that is a long-ass tournament. That's longer than the G1. That goes like 2 months, and I don't think CMLL is going to want to be without Vaquero for that long. But
I'd like to see Vaquero versus Statlander or like Mariah May or something like that at Forbidden Door, defending her title and maybe leading into some kind of continued angle alert. That would be a lot of fun. I think we're going to see a lot more of Windsor too, Alex Windsor. I don't think this is the last we see of them.
No, I agree. There's a lot of reasons for that, and the first one is that she's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Next one we have LIJ. That was Naito and Yota Tsuji against the Bullet Club. David Finlay and Kenta in that one. This one kind of felt to me like it was a high-quality house show match. It was pretty good. It had the happy ending with Naito hitting the Destino on Kenta. Not cleanly, but he hit it. The Finlay and Tsuji stuff was really good. It just felt like it was the classic good versus evil. The good guys won at the end, and it was well done. Overall, it was basically a house show match, I thought. And Naito and Kenta really were taking it fairly easy for the most part. No reason to get hurt.
Taking it fairly easy.
I heard that. I don't think it was as bad as it's been described in some places. I actually thought there were parts in that where Kenta was trying pretty hard, but like nothing earth-shattering. But good versus evil, good guys won. It was fine.
Finlay and Yota Tsuji were the ones doing the majority of the work. When we talk about Naito in the stateside, we talk about, is Naito wearing his shirt or is he not wearing the shirt? Naito wore the shirt for this match, and when that happened, I was like, okay, we are getting a house show Naito, just like you said. But we got a good match out of two of these guys, and we got a good match, or we got one good performance out of the other two.
So that was that. And again, we're setting up things for later eventually.
Do you think Naito and Finlay have a match with each other at Dominion after this?
Oh, I don't know. Could be. That could be a way to go.
They already cleared through Yota and Finlay, and I feel like you can't do that again at Dominion, but you have options there.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to get into a lot of matches for Dominion have been announced, but not for them. Yeah. After that, we had a nice little match here between Hiroshi Tanahashi and Zack Sabre. And Zack won the Zack driver after some really good pin scrambles and near falls. We've talked about why these two are excellent opponents from one another at this stage in their careers. Tana can use his head and not his body against Zack, and that makes a big difference because he's so smart. And yet his body doesn't have to be taxed in these matches, like I've mentioned. I think this is the best Tanahashi match I've seen since the last Zack Sabre match at Wrestle Kingdom.
He's the best opponent for him.
And hopefully Zach is now on to bigger things. In post-match comments, he was already talking about the G1 Climax, and he has to win G1 Climax. That's exactly where his focus ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
And in my book, he is one of the contenders to win that tournament. Exactly what it should have been. He gets his win back from Wrestle Kingdom on to, hopefully, world title contention fairly soon.
Listen, if it ends up being Naito versus Zack Sabre Jr. in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom next year for the IWGP title, I'm here for that. There is very few people that are on the level of that Zack Sabre Jr. There are very few people that can get this level of quality match out of Tanahashi at his state. This is not Tanahashi rising to the occasion so much as Zack Sabre Jr. able to wrestle such a match with Tanahashi that smoke and mirrors do not begin to describe the amount of skill of making you think that they are working harder than they actually are.
Dunstan mentions, by the way, he hopes to any god, any of them, that Stephanie and Mayu do a unification match someday. Well, with Mayu, people think is gone to Marigold as soon as she's contractually able. You might get your wish. They can do that.
Yep.
And after that one, we had a world television title match between Jeff Cobb and Lance Archer. I enjoyed the hell out of this. I will admit that I am in the tank for Lance Archer. I think he is much better than any company in North America seems to think. I just don't understand why this guy isn't a bigger star than he is. I think he does just about everything well. It was really fun seeing these guys throw each other around. Archer was back throwing the water, but not spitting it. Remember when he used to do that? When he used to come out with all the bottles of water?
What, the Murder Hawk monster again, and not the not whatever he was.
No, he's the American Psycho, not the Murder
American
Hawk
Psycho.
monster.
The American Psycho.
Yeah.
So he got rid of the dreadlocks and the red in the hair, and he's got the old look back, and he's crushing people.
All kinds of cool power moves in this one. Archer hit the blackout, but Cobb kicked out of the blackout. It was impressive enough that he got Cobb up for the blackout. Archer wanted to walk the ropes, but then when he jumped, Cobb caught him in midair and then put him in the Tour of the Islands to win. This is very impressive. This is exactly what I was hoping for, like a different thing for the
We're going to get the Mean Guy match campaign, aren't we?
I'm down, and this was fun. You didn't like this so much?
Bro, I think this was my favorite match on the show.
Oh, thank God! I was about to wonder, was I on nitrous or something during this match?
Man,
I freaking loved it.
This is the best goddamn match on the show. This was two mean guys that were highly athletic. I thought they almost killed each other on that first move of the match.
What was that? Was it a Spanish fly they tried to do?
It was a Spanish fly, and they were millimeters from crushing their necks on the. It was a lot of fun, man, and like. We got Best of Super Juniors, and then we're going into Dominion. And Cobb may have a Dominion match, right?
He has one.
He has one with the Ishii, right?
Yeah.
But it's like he's already over in AEW. He's already the New Japan ambassador right now for some way, shape, or form. So we might get Cobb doing some of these mean guy matches through the next couple weeks, going through Forbidden Door, because he's a perfect guy to be defending that TV title against some of their big crusher guys. End up having him on Rampage wrestling Shane Taylor or something like that.
Ooh, yeah.
Just there's potential there, and I hope that when you see Jeff Cobb and he's got a TV title, you realize that there are plenty of opportunities for some banger matches, because you saw him with Bryan Danielson last night on AEW Dynamite. The man was just on fire. And you saw this match and everything. It's like he's got a campaign ahead of him. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope that they maximize all the opportunities they have with Jeff Cobb for the next few weeks while he has that TV title with all the mean guy matches in the world.
Never open weight title match was up next. Shingo Takagi defeated Yuya Uemura, and Takagi pretty much dominated most of this one. Just kind of squished him there, and it reminded me a little bit of that Umino Narita tag match against Tanahashi and Okada, where the legends just mowed through the younger guys for the most part. This wasn't quite as severe, but it wasn't terribly far from it. And the story was very clear that Uemura is not ready for Shingo yet. And he talked about that in the post-match thing. He needs to rebuild himself. Maybe we can do something with that KOPW title and then get back to Takagi later, which is where I think this is going. I think that now the goal is for Uemura to get back to Shingo. He understands he's not there right now. Now I've got to work and get back to him, which is probably the long-term end, is that one day these two will meet again. Not necessarily during this never openweight title reign, but just in the future. Now, Uemura's got to prove to himself that he can play on Shingo's level, and he can't yet, as that was the story here. Before the match, they gave away the finish because they had Hanare come on in a video. We haven't seen Hanare since that cage match with United Empire and the War Dogs. Big scar on the man's scalp. Just terrifying what happened to him. He almost bled out there next to the ring, then got up and finished the match because he's an RA and he's superhuman. He challenged the winner, which gave away the ending, really. There's no way in the world you can have that be Uemura against Hanare for the time when we know that Shingo and Uemura. So anyway, the whole point of this is that Shingo beats him. He gets the match with Hanare at Dominion, which is what everybody's kind of excited about. And Uemura has a mission now. And his promo afterwards, Uemura's, was very young lionish. I have to get stronger. I will get stronger, and I will come back and overtake him and overcome him. This guy's kind of regressed a little bit since that hair match. And I'm not just saying it's only the hair thing, but he's a little less charismatic. He's just a little less. And I think he needs a little bit of personality. The heat thing doesn't work. He needs to bring that out in his KOPW stuff, but he's slid back a little bit. There were times when I was just like saying that, don't call him the Rey with Three Musketeers anymore. There's four of them. Mm-hmm. And he's back behind him again. He's fourth out of that, and by a decent distance. I believe in it. He's got a ton of potential and a ton of talent. He needs to find himself. And that hasn't worked out well since he lost the hair match.
I think there's something a little more to it. I think it's very deliberate that he has found that he has come up against a brick wall when he has faced the members of LIJ. Like a lot of his opposition has come from Yota Tsuji and now Shingo Takagi as both obstacles. And I think that they just might be the Albatross faction around Uemura's neck. He's had success against Great Okan. There are other people that he has done well against, but once he got that first win against Yota, he got super cocky, and then all of a sudden, like, he can't get a win against these guys. And it's just, not only can he not get a win, he can't even get a leg up on it. Like, Shingo took his lunch money in this match. There wasn't a sense of like, oh, I'm going to take 95% of the match and the other guy's going to win. It's like, no, he took 95% of the match and still won. It's like there's a rebuilding aspect to this, and I think it's deliberate with LIJ, and I think we just haven't seen the full curtain pullback. In addition to that, when it comes to Hanare and Shingo, I'm all for it. Everybody knows it's going to be a great match. Mm-hmm. But God damn it, Steven, the 2023 G1 Climax C block will not fucking die.
Can't get away from each other. Can't quit each other. USV guy is here. Glad to see you. He says the problem with the Cobb appearances on Dynamite is they don't make sense with Cobb's criticism of AEW. It makes things seem very odd. Maybe they can work something like that in. That he's just like there because he's ticked off with the way things are going. It's not a bad point that he's basically been criticizing him, then all of a sudden he's on there. But you can work that into the story.
You have the TV title though. Like you have when you are. It's not Zack Sabre Jr.'s job this year to be on AEW multiple times. So the thing, like Jeff Cobb loves New Japan. If New Japan's like, hey, you're going to hold the title, and you're going to go AEW and do some wrestling matches there, while the best of the Super Juniors, like, are you down with that? Like, you're like, cool, yeah, sure, boss. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. He can talk shit about New Japan or AEW all he wants. And yeah, you can incorporate it, but at the end of the day, if New Japan is signing a paycheck and say, hey, you're going to go wrestle in AEW. It's like, you're going to go wrestle in AEW.
Yeah, Dunstan says he might need another excursion, maybe training with Danielson. It's a tough spot for Uemura right now, but I think that a lot of this King of Pro Wrestling stuff will bring a little bit of him out, and we'll see. It is a storyline. He's a talented guy, but he does need to find something. So
he came back 9 months ago, right? He showed up again. It's like, we're expecting a fully formed, a fully developed, star out of this. This is his story right now. This is he came back. He was full of bluster. He's full of confidence. He had the bright hair. the heat storm, and slowly and methodically, all that bluster and all that extra stuff that he has been torn down, and he has to get back to what are the basics of what he is about. He is a pure wrestler who is able to go in the ring with a high-flying ability, and he needs to count on that rather than all the extra stuff that he learned out there that helps but does not define him.
Up next was the NJPW Strong Openweight title match. No rope, last man standing. And unfortunately, there was only one standing at the end of it. Gabe Kidd, Eddie Kingston. We suspected that this is going to be the title change as they take all those Triple Crown belts off of Eddie. And that's indeed what happened. Gabe did ended up winning it. Both of them were bloody. They were using weapons. They were smashing each other around. It was exactly what we thought it was going to be. Just a slobber knocking brawl. They beat the hell out of each other. There was a very awkward moment in the match when Gabe couldn't find the barbed wire chair he was supposed to find. He looked and he looked and he looked and he looked. He looked under one corner, then the other corner, then the third corner. He looked under multiple times, and he would have to go back into the ring and stomp Eddie. And Eddie was doing his best to keep on selling, but it was starting to get funny. Finally, he located this thing. I don't know if somebody moved it on him at some point beforehand, but he managed to use it. They were all, what kind of a match this whole thing is. They kept breaking the count on one another, but these matches are already absurd. So there's not a whole lot of point in getting hung up on how ridiculous it is that you can just say, no, wait, I want to keep beating him. Don't count him out. Asinine. But again, these matches are we've given up on reality.
Okay, so that's the way to go. Like, there's a threshold of violence. It surpassed that threshold. That's all you need to know about this match.
Yeah. Eddie ended up handcuffing himself to Gabe. Gabe ended up putting Eddie through a table. Now, as it was happening, they set up this table as a bridge between the ring and the barricade, right? The metal barricade. Mm-hmm. And they didn't think this stuff through. And as they were hooking up for the suplex, I said out loud to my girlfriend, it's like, oh, be careful. They're close. They were not careful, and it was close. Eddie got hurt. We don't know for sure just how bad, but he's out of the pay-per-view, the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. He took the snap suplex, smashed his leg on that barricade. And of course, it is the absolute opposite of Japan. They used the thinnest, those tissue paper-like tables that they were using in California, as opposed to those rock-solid ones they use in Japan. Anyway, it provided no protection for him. He smashed his leg on this thing and had to really get up. And he had to get up. And why did he have to get up? He had to get back in the ring so that Jack Perry could come down and distract him so he could be attacked by Huey and Dewey Jackson. So as they cut this promo where they're promoting AEW pay-per-views and they're giving this long, boring, cliched promo about how, oh, geez, you guys are poor. They did an MJF promo. You guys are poor. We're rich. Look at us. As they go on about this authority figure, heel authority figure angle that was tired 15 years ago in the other company. Huey and Dewey are out there talking, and it reminds me, they reminded us that it had been 5 years since we last saw these two in New Japan. And this angle reminded me that 5 years is not nearly long enough. Wow. So we're stuck with this crap. And so in the end, this is all leading, I guess, to another pay-per-view and show with AEW that I'm not going to probably watch.
I mean, this is all Forbidden Door buildup. Anarchy in the Arena, going into Forbidden Door. I would like to temper everyone's expectations that we're going to see the Young Bucks in a New Japan ring in Japan.
No, thank you.
Maybe they might do a show stateside. No, but I doubt it. They drove up from the desert, kind of where I was this whole weekend, did their whole hour drive. They had way more patience than me for it. But, oh my God, when we are 4 hours and 20 minutes into this show, and then all of a sudden we're getting soliloquies by the Young Bucks about a show that has nothing to do with the majority of New Japan interest, I was so angry. I was like, get this show going. Let's move on. I don't care about this right now. We still have a Moxley show to main event. Stop. No, let's get this. No, absolutely not. Finish this up. Let's wrap this up. And they kept talking.
Dunce said they need teams, Steven. Not that one. Not that one. No, they're very busy. They're very busy as executive vice president. They have so much to do in AEW. I wouldn't dream of trying to take time away from Huey and Dewey to come back to New Japan.
They're big timers. Like these New Japan shows, they are though. Like this is like
they're
whatever
really
AEW is like they're one of the top acts over there. They're not.
Are they?
Yeah, they're treated as if they have
Well, they're treated like it because Tony pays them to hang around with them.
We don't have to litigate this. You know what I'm saying.
How's that 18 to 34 doing since they started this angle? How's the 18 to 34 doing since they started this angle?
You're going to destroy the show today.
I'm just pissed.
I was not into the decision to advertise Double or Nothing when there was one more match and the show was already extremely full.
Oh God, I know.
That was it. I was just like, read the fucking room, let's finish this show up.
Yeah.
And that was basically my whole gripe at that point.
No, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of playing this up a little bit because I don't like their style. I just don't enjoy their matches. I don't enjoy their presentation. I never have. But that's not an anti-AEW thing. I didn't particularly think they were good when they were here the first time. I know that a lot of people do. I understand. I might even be in the total minority in that, although I don't think I'm in as much of the minority as people think. But the whole point about this is, you're right. This just was, at this point, you're just like, guys, you know,
like, just wrap it up here.
John Moxley and Shota Umino was the main event. Umino had a jump start on this, and I thought the story here, Jeremy, was very, very interesting. Normally, when you have the master versus student, the story is that the mentor is a step ahead and the student is scratching and clawing to stay with him. And then, you know, the student gets on a little bit of rally, but that smart little master kind of gets him and counters something, right? Bit different right here. This story was that Umino was a step ahead or even a bit more aggressive than Moxley at certain points as this match progressed. And it's not, he wasn't proving that he could keep up. He was proving that in some cases he could be ahead of him. Umino seemed to be the instigator of a lot of things. And you can see that Moxley clearly likes and respects Shooter to give him this much in this match. He gave Umino a lot. Umino ended up hitting an elbow off the ropes through a table. Once again, these tissue paper tables they're using, these guys just crashed to the floor hard right there. Umino kicked out of a Death Rider. You don't see that every day. And hit his own Death Rider, hit a Blaze Blade. Mox ended up rallying with a curb stomp and hit the Paradigm Shift to win. This was 34 minutes and 18 seconds officially. I really enjoyed this match. I think these two have great chemistry. I thought this was terrific. And it is Shota's graduation, and he showed up. It was a tremendous effort. Mm-hmm. And someday, it's going to be so sweet when Umino finally wins it. Afterwards, they bowed to one another, but we had another angle to run to set up Dominion. Evil and Ren Narita attacked to set up the world title match at Dominion. And Evil even spray painted the belt black. So
he told him he was the champion of New Japan and Moxley was the challenger.
And the president. He's also the New Japan president. Because I guess altogether, Evil beat Tanahashi there. So USVA guy says that the reaction overall has been very lukewarm among the fandom everywhere for the Young Bucks. It's been hilarious how sad it's been. Big shock to AEW fans and executives. We'll see how it all turns out. But it did feel it was an AEW commercial. But
you're absolutely right, though, USVA. It's just there's people know when these guys are going to show up and they're going to be around and it's going to mean something. When you show up to be exciting and you have this moment, you're like, oh, wow. But you don't believe for 1 second that it's going to affect the very fabric of New Japan, like the way the announcer will tell you, like, wow, this is going to shake New Japan to the very core. No, it's not. You know, it's like, it really won't.
No.
So you have to have credibility when you have those kind of moments. And the Young Bucks right now, like, they exist with the spear, but if you're going to have the Young Bucks in orbit of Jack Perry, and you're also going to have them in the orbit of Okada, and then Okada's not coming anywhere near New Japan, there's just a dissonance there that, you know, New Japan fans are a little smarter than that.
So what we ended up with there was a terrific main event match, an angle there to set up Dominion, and that's how we went off the air there. I think the Evil match here, we're going to talk about the matches that were set up for Dominion. There were several of them because I mentioned like Ishii challenging Shingo, all that. Cobb. I think this main event is to have that heel face dynamic again. The threat will still be there though, because remember, Evil has won these types of matches before when we did not think he would. Remember the Naito thing during the pandemic? We did not think he was going to beat Naito coming out of that. But so there's a little bit of jeopardy here. Again, I don't think that Moxley's going to lose, but you can't be totally sure. Mox has been running through the top House of Torture guys. He beat Narita. Now he's facing Evil. He says he'll destroy House of Torture. I'm not sure that'll happen. I feel like if they fail again, then something should change with House of Torture. But he also says he's bringing friends for a gang war.
Take a glass of water. I'll take over for a second.
Well, friends plural, not just sure.
There are a few people that could show up, but at the same time, you could have a few of these build-up matches going into Dominion. There is an aspect of this, though, that even though Moxley defeated Naito, he's got to have some type of statement win against the signature New Japan talent during this run. And while Ren Narita and Shota Umino are credible, they're still up-and-comers and not established or former IWGP champions or people at this run right now. And Moxley having this match with Evil is kind of more or less, a solidifying factor in his run, because they're talking about his title defenses and how many he's had and how prolific it's been in the last. It's like, sure, whatever. The caliber of these matches are not at the level of all IWGP matches, even though they're very, very good. This just feels like a credibility match so that Moxley's reign doesn't feel like he's just facing the Reiwa and a couple of light challenges.
Well, and again, you get the whole thing where the whole crowd's going to be behind him.
Yes.
And that's going to be important. So what we're looking at here, too. Okay. Dunstan, by the way, he says, I thought the main event was great and really did feel like Shota brought everything out of his bag. I thought so, too. Now it's time for him to have a new version of himself. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe a new haircut?
Maybe. And I also think that Shota Umino is somebody to take seriously in the G1 as far as maybe making it out of the block play. Maybe not winning it, but making it out of the block play. That's a possibility. USVA guy has a take. He said, Evil was wonderful. The heat is off the charts. House of Torture is getting sympathy now from American fans. Not sure what color the sky is in that world right there, but we're going to talk about that, because is this a good move for them? We've got some interesting data, not scientific data by anything. And Dunstan mentions it. Here it goes. Let's go right to it, Jeremy, because Dunstan mentions it. Even Kadani is questioning this main event after the poll. So talk to us about this poll, Jeremy.
Okay, so I stumbled on something the other day, and there was a random poll from boy_NJPW, and he asked on June 9th, which one is more suitable to be the main event at Osaka Castle Hall for Dominion. 80% of the 350 votes chose the Best of Super Juniors final over the IWGP Championship, which was 15%. This in and of itself is curious. What is even more curious is Kadani, the president of New Japan, responding to this with a quote tweet saying, "We must take this result seriously."
So we don't really know what that means, of course, and it's certainly an unscientific poll. I mean, it's one Twitter poll with 350 people, and the internet wrestling community is not wrestling fans. It's not representative of wrestling fans. So it's interesting to see there, but it is interesting that Kadani said something about it. That is worth paying attention to.
And right, you mentioned on the website, what was interesting about the website?
The website has the card listed for Dominion, and it does have the Best of Super Juniors at the bottom of it. And the rest of the card feels like a card. Now, the NJPW website is a mess at the moment. There are issues with it. It's in
medium.com.
Yeah, it's a mess. So the card, though, it's not set up match 1, 2, 3, 4 like it often is when everything's working right. But it does seem to be in the order from starting at the top with the four-way tag team title match. We're going to read them off here in a bit. Going down to the Never title match, and then the IWGP title match.
TV title. There's a KOPW. There's a TV title match.
In descending order, the way you would think there's a card, at the very bottom of that is now the Best of the Super Juniors finals. Doesn't mean that is officially the main event. We're not saying that. But it is something to keep an eye on, as Kadani has noted some dissatisfaction apparently from the populace. And that, again, you mentioned it, for the folks that are listening to this as a podcast, that's not just from America. That poll was in Japanese. And so that we're thinking that's a lot of Japanese fans that are voting in that direction. Again, just a bunch of wrestling fans on X is not representative wrestling fans.
This is the best way I can put this, right? Is that I am not sure if this is news or noise. And by next week, we might have a more serious conversation about whether this is news or noise.
And then Dunson said that Dominion is a 3-match card to me. That main event is with the Death Skull.
Well, let's check out what the rest of the card is.
Tag team elimination match. So this is a tornado elimination match. This is the one that was mentioned here. Both sets of tag team titles on the line, because why the hell not? ELP and Hikuleo, TMDK, Chase Owens and Kenta, and Bishamon. So it's an elimination match. So 3 teams are going to have to lose a fall. Whoever comes out on top gets both tag team championships, because they can.
So it's not you win a fall and you get a title.
Not under that impression. Okay. TV title match. Jeff Cobb against Tomohiro Ishii. Yes, please. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Good
guy match.
Here. Yeah. KOPW Championship, a rematch with Yuya Uemura and the Great Okan. Now, we do not know what the stipulations are for this thing.
You think it'll be a rural revitalization match at Osaka Joe Hall?
I don't think so. I have a feeling that they've mentioned that Great Okan would even be open to using Uemura's catch wrestling rules. I don't know. We'll see where they go with that. I don't know that we'll be seeing rural revitalization here, but
sure.
I don't know. Osaka has great food, though, so if they want to do an eating contest, they're in the right city.
Maybe they'll finally get their eel.
I think someone finally figured out that, do we want a bunch of eel laying around backstage for 2 hours, then have someone eat it?
No, you grill it right away, and then you bring it to the ring so it's warm in their stomach, and then it makes them sick.
This is all very elaborate. After that, we have the never open weight title, Shingo Takagi versus Hanare. These two are wonderful opponents for one another. I'm just thrilled to see Hanare back in the ring after that terrible accident in the cage match there, where it split open like an artery or something. It's like something severe, really severe happened to him there.
I almost feel like he's getting rewarded for surviving. Like, hey, we're going to give you a title match.
But it's against Shingo Takagi. It's going to be great. These two are brilliant together, so should be a lot of fun. IWGP World Heavyweight title, John Moxley against Evil. We've talked to death about this one and its implications, but we will see, though, if he does indeed have more backup than just Shota here, and if they are able to destroy the House of Torture as he's sworn to do. And then the finals of the Best of the Super Junior tournament. That's what we have so far. If you notice, there's plenty to add on here, because there's no Naito here. There is no Finlay here. Might be against each other. There are a lot of people that are going
trios. Trios championships on the line.
Yeah, so there's more to be added.
Never 6-man titles. I mean, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I feel like, given that we're going to spend the next 35 minutes talking about the Best of the Super Juniors, it does feel kind of appropriate that might potentially be the main event of Dominion.
Could very well be. We'll have to keep an eye. But let's take a look at where we are in the Best of the Super Juniors, because Super Juniors, like I mentioned, 4 really good shows this week. A lot of wrestling to watch, but it's been very entertaining. So why don't we take a look at the blocks here, or do we want to? Where do you want to start, Jeremy?
Honestly, I have the match card for all of them, and I have like the latest of the block updates. But I'm all over the place on this.
In A block, the current standings as we stand now, but each block has had. We've had 4 shows, but each block has had 3 matches. The first 2 nights were 10-match cards. We're going to get a couple more of those coming up. And then the last 2 were prelim tags with the tournament matches later. I thought it was interesting, Jeremy. They're actually doing fewer prelim matches than there are matches in the tournament, meaning that some guys are actually getting nights off. Not everybody's in a preview tag every night. So that's a nice little touch, I think. Give these guys a break here.
Because the website is kind of screwy and their ex-presence isn't always on our timeline, I do not have updated A block and B block standings, I believe.
So in A block right now, on 6 points, sitting on 6 points, undefeated is Teton and Blake Christian. After that, we have Clark Connors, Kevin Knight, and El Desperado right behind with 4.
Okay.
In a little bit of trouble, Hayata, Kosei Fujita, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru with 2. And the story of this block so far, TJP 0-3, 0 points scored. Same for Bushi, which is a little bit less surprising. But nevertheless, TJP on 0. So a couple of things I think here. I don't believe that TJP is going to go. We're going to find out, right? TJP's fourth match is against Bushi. My thought is this, Jeremy. We're going to find out that day what story we're telling here. Is that match against Bushi the beginning of the comeback, where he begins that run, where he starts winning on the way to, either, being into it on the last day, whether he makes the semifinals or not? Or is the story that TJP just is an abject failure of a tournament, where he just falls on his face after becoming the captain because it's part of a larger story of who's actually in charge of the United Empire? Where's your head on where this is going?
Failboat. I think he's captain of the failboat. You kind of look at it and you think TJP and Akira facing off in the semifinals was a great story, but I think the story is just TJP isn't fit for this, and he may be the guy for Bullet Club. You know what I mean? Like there's something to TJP here. The pieces don't fit. When you're looking for the puzzle and you're working it all out, there's something about this that just does not fit. And it's possible. It's entirely possible that he can make the comeback. But after the New Japan Cup and the heavy-handedness with him failing, I don't have the confidence, and maybe that's what they want, is for you to lose confidence and then him to prove it's all wrong. But right now, I don't see it. Okay.
What do you think of Blake Christian in this tournament so far? He's undefeated with 3 wins. I don't think he's going to continue on that trajectory. I think this is going to be one where he starts coming back down to earth. But what have you thought about his matches so far?
I think that he has come out looking like a house of fire, and that he knows that his time to shine is at the beginning of this tournament, because he's going to be eating a lot of losses and doing that thing. And you say that thing like making the best of your minutes. He has definitely made the best of his minutes in these matches. And I thought his match with Kevin Knight was tremendous. Kevin Knight's also another guy that's just been fantastic in this. And I was really impressed with the fact, and kind of surprised to beat Clark Connors too.
Let's look at who he's beaten so far. So he got a win over Yoshinobu Kanemaru. He beat Kevin Knight, and he beat Clark Connors, which means he still has guys like Desperado and TJP and Teton still coming for him. So I feel like he's going to kind of hit that wall a little bit, where now he's going to come back to the pack. But again, his goal here is just to have really good matches and just show up and increase his stock that way. That's really what he's here for. As far as Teton goes, we know that Teton's good. He made the finals last year. Mm-hmm. He has wins over El Desperado, Bushi, and Hayata. So he's also, with the exception of the Desperado match, has tough matches ahead of him as well. So piling up early wins here, but that's a guy you do have to take seriously for the semifinals, just because he made the finals last year. So there's no reason to think that they wouldn't go that direction with him. And Teton's been having pretty good matches as well. You can also tell how they're positioned. He's had a couple main events in there also. a main event. So yeah, just your thoughts on this. Is anything you've seen in the first week take you away from your prediction, or are we just waiting for the scores to shake out the way we think they will?
I mean, when we talked about it last week, this was not a scientific analysis that you and I were talking. I had a ton of stuff going on, and it was just basically off the cuff. Oh, you could do this, 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 and this. And there was a lot of talk about TJP and Akira and like both of them in the bracket and being such prominent super juniors, but not really shining up to this point with the tag failures and all that. Maybe their time to shine was going to be a single. So it was an easy thing to gravitate towards that. My approach to this whole Super Juniors is just to enjoy the ride and just kind of see where they're going with it. Like, I still kind of feel like Desperado's going to be in there somewhere. Hiromu is doing the losing streak until he figures it out. And maybe when he faces off against Show and like beats the champion and gets his confidence back in the middle of the tournament, you got something like that going on, which is going to happen, I think, tomorrow in that match. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different directions that they can go. And the quality of the matches from top to bottom have been so good that I literally have zero issues if they decided to put Hayata and Ninja Mac and Drill Maloney and all these guys that you wouldn't expect to be in it, because I've just been happy with everything.
Okay. Well, very good. Yeah, no, I think it's been entertaining. I'm still thinking the Desperado is going to be a part of this thing.
Yeah.
And that match, again, it's going to go one direction or the other. I think if TJP beats Bushi, then he's going to go on a run and he's going to be involved until the very last day of the block play. The other person, I think, and Teton will be as well, but I still feel like that's probably where they're going with it. The guys that are on 2 points right now, like Hayata, Fujita, and Kanemaru, I don't see them getting in there, any of them. I love Fujita. We're going to talk about Fujita's performances so far. Connor's tag team guy, I think they don't need that. Same thing with Knight. So that I do think those are the three. I think those two semifinal spots are coming from Teton, Desperado, and TJP, even though he's on 0. If he loses to Bushi, then we know what the story is, that he's just having a bust of a tourney.
So I don't think Desperado wins this, and I'll tell you why. The next day after Dominion is the Despy Invitational. So if Desperado wins this tournament, Best of Super Juniors, potentially in the main event, and then the next night has the Despy Invitational, either that's incredibly self-indulgent or Despy will get his ass destroyed at the end of the Despy Invitational. Like, you can't have 2 nights in a row where it's just like this guy wins everything, and then the next night he has his mystery vortex match in which it's like he's treating it like a speakeasy with the hidden invitations and all that stuff. It's like, that's just too much goodness in like a 24-hour period. And I'm just like, New Japan doesn't do that shit. It's like he's going to have his night the next night at the Despy Invitational, and somebody else is going to win the Best of Super Juniors.
I still think it's going to be the opposite. I think this could be the year he wins Super Juniors, and then someone does put heat on him at the end of the Invitational. That could very well happen.
Maybe. I feel like New Japan has no sense of urgency right now and would rather just have Hiromu win it again and have Despy like fight his way to Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, let's take a look at the B block in the meantime. So Taiji Ishimori and Kushida unbeaten at 6 points each. So let's unpack there. Ninja Mac and Show are sitting just behind on 4. At 2, we have a glut of guys here. Francesco Akira, Robbie Eagles, Drilla Maloney, Doki, and Hiromu Takahashi on 2. And then Dragon Daya on 0. So Daya, again, another late replacement. He's the guy that is he's filling in for Taguchi right here. And I tell you what, he's been a wonderful addition to the tournament. He's not going to get very many points in this thing. That's not what he's there for. But, man, is this a talented guy. The thing that struck me about Dragon Daya is just how small he is, because he wrestled Hiromu today, and Hiromu looked big compared to him. Yes. Hiromu doesn't look big against anybody. Hiromu's taller. He's thicker than him. Just think about that. But, man, is he a talented dude. I'm enjoying watching Dragon Daya wrestle a lot more than I think I would be enjoying Taguchi matches in the same spot.
like both him and Ninja Mac are bringing something fresh to their matches, and I don't mean to just take away from Dragon Die. I absolutely agree with you. That match with Hiromu today was fantastic. They're both breath of fresh air, and when you have both of these guys in this block, allowing for multiple matches on these evenings to feel fresh rather than, like the carousel of the same guys that you always see wrestle each other. It's really allowing like brevity and like to allow you to pay attention to the whole tournament more, because you are not lulled into the complacency of just seeing the same guy wrestle all the time.
All right, so there you have it, and I do agree with you there that it's nice to have that freshness too, and some fresh matchups that we've been seeing. Taiji Ishimori, he has beaten Doki, Dragon Dia, and Robbie Eagles so far. Those are his wins. Kushida has wins over Akira, Sho, and Hiromu. Now, what I really like about Kushida in this one is he has a really good. Of course, he's a terrific worker, but he has really made some interesting inroads as far as his working style. He works differently than he used to, and I'm enjoying how he is working toward that hoverboard lock all the time. And he has some really clever ways of getting offense in on the other guy's arm to set it up. And he'll do things like come out of a move, and the guy is on all fours, and he'll just run up and kick it. And all of a sudden, that's a turning point in the match. He did it in a match where he caught Akira sliding into the ring when they teased the count out, kicked the crap out of his arm.
He did it off the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
He put him in the hoverboard lock and then took him off the top rope into a suplex, holding the arm in the hoverboard lock position, and then continued the hold to. I think he ended the match that way, right? Yeah.
He went in the hoverboard lock after that.
That was when he really sent it home that this is a devastating maneuver. He was the one that replaced Yo, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I'm surprised at that he was not in the tournament but was available for it. When I first saw the lineup, I just thought, oh, Kushida must be booked here or something, like Kevin Knight. It was in and Kushida wasn't, and that did surprise me. Now I see Kushida in there, I'm just thinking he should have been in the whole time.
Right. He feels renewed. I don't know what it is, but he just feels like he is. I've not seen this level of Kushida-ness in a couple of years. I remember last year he had a match that was really great. I think it was Hiromu, and they went all around the ring. They went all around the arena. They went outside and did all that stuff.
That's right.
But I don't feel that Kushida energy this time. I feel like this is a guy who's just going out there wrestling matches and knowing that, and kind of wanting to see if he can hang with this generation right now.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that he can. Now, I don't think he's going to continue. I think that's another one that's going to come back to earth a little bit like Blake Christian. And Ishimori, I do think will be involved in the last day. I don't know if he'll get into the semifinals.
It's Ishimori and Akira in the have a match together on the last day?
I'd have to look at that right now. If you have the block, go ahead and bring it up because the dates are.
I am looking for it right now.
But yeah, in the meantime, while you're doing that, let's take a look at the other people that are in this one.
It is Akira and Sho, I believe.
My theory on that is that Akira is going to upset Sho to keep him out of it. That's going to be the thing. Kushida has a win over Sho and has mentioned getting a title shot at Sho at some point that he feels like he deserves. I think that could be a good match. And again, one that probably the House of Torture could interfere with effectively and keep the belt on Sho. You could always do that. So it'd be a match for a guy that's not a full-timer that Sho could beat. Ninja Mac, like you mentioned, did a little bit of an angle with Sho. They're both sitting on 4 points. So Ninja Mac in a preview.
That was delightful.
Had the thing where Sho ripped his mask off after that preview tag match, and then they did a little skit. So when they came time for their match, they brought out Sho brought out Ninja Mac, brought him out to the ring, apparently beat him up in the back. We didn't see that part, but he comes out with a very dazed and unfocused Ninja Mac, throws him in the ring, puts him in the Boston Crab, and gets an immediate tap out. The referee's ringing the bell. Oh, geez, I guess we had a quick one right here. Well, suddenly Ninja Mac comes running out from the back with his hands and wrists all full of tape. He's ripping this tape off. Says that no, I've been accosted in the back and tied up, and that's not me. And convinced the referee. They had the match. Sadly, didn't win anyway.
Still lost. I was like,
lost.
wow.
And then we found out it was Murashima the whole time, the young lion under the hood there. They had stuck this Ninja Mac mask that they stole the night before, stuck it on his head and tried to pass it off as him.
It was pretty funny. It was a pretty clever angle. Like, I watched it, I was like, wow, Ninja Mac's kind of I did not expect that. And then like I saw it started all playing out, like, oh, all right, we're gonna have a match here. And he still lost it.
So Hugh's here with us, and Hugh, thank you for joining us here. He says, let's be honest, NJPW is down in the dumps compared to pre-pandemic. Address that real quick. That's a tough comparison because 2019 was one of the biggest years New Japan ever had in this modern era. They damn near filled up the Tokyo Dome for Wrestle Kingdom that year. In 2020, in 2020 was a really big Wrestle Kingdom year. 2019, which is the year I went to Japan, and I saw them the G1 here in Dallas, and things were really cooking that year. It's a tough comparison. The pandemic absolutely wounded them. We've been talking about how it's a bit of a letdown in terms of some of the losses they've had with Ospreay and Okada. It is a rebuilding time. There's no question about it. Down in the dumps.
Flat stories.
It's hard to argue with that point. And what we're doing here is seeing a Super Juniors that is at least giving us a little of oasis of really fun matches in the middle of what's been a difficult period. Where
I can't see fault with what you said there. Like,
no,
it sucks that it's down in the dumps. It sucks that we have to sit here and try and like kind of on the bright side. Yeah, there is a bright side, but it sucks that we have to talk about it like there's a bright side.
Yeah, and it is. It's a tough period. It's a rebuilding year, so sometimes you just got to take your medicine with that stuff. But what we're trying to do is find the little gems that can lead New Japan out of this. We feel like Shota Umino is coming along very nicely in that regard. And the other thing is Kosei Fujita, because good Lord, is this guy preternaturally talented. And I'll tell you what, the matches he's having,
wrestling.
Yeah. And Hugh just says, as a fan for many years, I'm disappointed these last few years, but I understand, stay positive. Well, I appreciate that. And
I could be sassy about it. I just, there are points where it's just like,
2017 was a great year too. He brings that back up.
Teardown doesn't like. It hurts me personally to just feed into it, but. Like, there are times where I'm just going to go, man, what am I doing with my life?
It's tough, but, I think that we have guys like Umino, we have guys like Tsuji, we have guys like Fujita coming. And so that's what I try to keep my mind on. And I hope that New Japan fans are as well, that these people are developing and coming up. Bolton is going to be a fascinating dude at some point. And Dunstan, you mentioned him. Should he have gotten like the Brock Lesnar push right away? I kind of like what they're doing with him because I think he's going to turn into a better wrestler this way than just doing a Brock Lesnar thing where he does a 3-minute match and kills everybody. Like, I want to see this guy develop into a really good wrestler. He's a monster. We know he's a monster. But I like that they're actually trying to make him into a good wrestler too, and Brock became that. Brock absolutely became that. But do I want to see like 5-minute matches where Bolton does? I think I'd like to see a little bit more out of him. And I think he's very capable of it.
When they pull the trigger on some of these guys, you guys are going to see me doing dancing, just going nuts here. Like, you can't do these, like, you can't do the turn. You can't do the moment. You can't do those spots all the time. They have to be few and far between, and they have to mean something. And when it does, I am hoping, like, everybody talks about it. And everyone's like, I've been waiting for it this whole time. Like, no, you haven't. You don't even know what we're talking about. But for the real ones, yeah, we're right there with you.
And he mentions that Joshi grew during the pandemic. It really, just Stardom did. That was about the one company that actually managed to grow during the pandemic, just because they had a really interesting influx of talent, some interesting stories, and they really caught people's imagination during the pandemic. But that's about the only company that did. Everybody else got pretty badly wounded. After that, though, let's take again. I want to go back to Fujita because this match he had against Kevin Knight was absolutely brilliant. And I said this, I got so excited. I sent a message to Scott Edwards on the 5-Star Joshi show, and I just said, you know what? This rivalry, Knight and Fujita,
This
could be
match, by the way, was on night 3.
Oh,
it was the first
brilliant.
match of night 3.
And I just said, this could be the Starlight Kid Azumi of New Japan, where you can just have these two wrestle in any context, any night, go ahead and put them in, and it's going to be brilliant. And what I keep going back to with this is that someday in the next 3 or 4 years, Kosei Fujita is going to be having match of the year candidates on major New Japan shows, fighting over that IWGP junior heavyweight title. I'm convinced of it. Like that, he is going to be at some point one of the very best in the world. That's the trajectory he's on. We're talking Hiromu, like, as far as this guy, as far as his work, his athleticism, his charisma, it is all there for Fujita. Knight is damn near as good, might be as good. My only issue with Knight is, will he be there in 3 to 4 years to challenge Fujita or to wrestle Fujita or to be a rival? Because I have a feeling somebody in the United States is going to figure out that this guy has every tool in the toolbox. But in the meantime, I am just going to enjoy these two guys. I mentioned that I feel like Knight is the equivalent in baseball. He would be a 5-tool prospect, a guy that does absolutely everything well. And he can talk, he can wrestle, he has a great build, he has excellent charisma, he emotes, he just does everything well. And I just think that guy is going to get picked up eventually. But in the meantime, we've got him. And I'm going to sit here and enjoy the fact that we have him for a while. And someday, though, Kosei Fujita is going to be discussed in the same breath as we're talking about.
He's going to be the man very, very soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Fujita's matches with Desperado and Kevin Knight. This isn't the way New Japan does things, just launch a guy from scratch like that. So I don't think that Fujita is going to go on some big run and win this tournament. I'd love it, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be a slower burn. And I do think that we're still in the Hiromu Desperado era. I don't think we're done with that yet. But I think Fujita is going to be that next one. I think he's going to be the next ace of the junior division.
So here's what I'd like to do real quick. I would like to do the live read, and then I want to run through what actual matches happened on what night, and then I want to get your thoughts on the order of what were the best nights that you've seen out of the first 4 nights. So that we'll just kind of refresh ourselves, and then when people are recapping and want to know what to catch, we have a real good opinion of what to share. It's like, hey, what should you prioritize if you have a limited amount of time? So,
go ahead.
We are members of the Fight Game Media Network. You can find a selection of our shows at all audio podcast catchers, with shows that include The Wrap, The Dynamite Show, The 5-Star Joshi Show, Popcorn and Pile Drivers, and various newsworthy pay-per-view and PL recap shows for WWE, AEW, and New Japan, as well as Stardom and Marigold. We also, as you can see, have a YouTube channel that succeeds more and more from the feedback you provide. So if you like what we do here live on Spots every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Power Bomb shows every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Dynamite Show following every AEW Dynamite, 5-Star Joshi Show content, and live presentation of pay-per-view recaps, you can subscribe if you're listening for the first time, or just hit that like button for the show to pop up again until you're sure we're the team for you. We thank you for every minute you spend with us, and we hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy the time with you. Now that the library is over, Steven, I'm going to show you these cards. Okay. So on night 1, we started out with Akira and Dragon Dia. We had Bushi and Hayata. We had Robbie Eagles and Ninja Mac. Fujita and Kanemaru. Drew Maloney and Show. We had Blake Christian and Clark Connors. We had Doki and Taiji Ishimori. We had Kevin Knight and TJP. And we had Kushida and Hiromu Takahashi. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't exactly lit on fire with this show tonight. And we also had Desperado and Teton. Night 1 was good, but I wasn't sometimes you just want night 1 to just be a house of fire and blow you away. And I didn't feel that way about this show. I was okay, this was really good, but I wasn't like, oh, wow, I'm here for it.
Wow, I went the other way. I love night 1. I those last
night 2 instead.
The last 3 matches, I thought Knight versus TJP was excellent. Hiromu versus Kushida was wonderful. Teton and El Desperado. By the way, Hiromu getting that win over Dragon Dia, his first singles win of 2024. Incredibly. That's how long they made us wait for that. But yeah, Hiromu losing to Kushida was fascinating in a lot of ways because, of course, that is a rivalry that goes back years. I mean, the Kushida basically ceded the ace of the junior heavyweight division position to Hiromu Takahashi.
Mm-hmm.
And then Teton and Desperado were wonderful. You know, I'm in the bag for Despe.
I am too.
But
and I
this
thought,
was an
I
excellent
agree
match.
with you that those three matches at the very end were great. But
And
I thought top to bottom, night 2 didn't miss.
There was a theme to night 1 also because it had a lot of first timers in there, and they all went over. So
yes.
Fujita won, Hayata won, Blake Christian won. You know, all this stuff, and what you saw there was just a lot of the new guys being made to look like threats. Is the point, whether they're going to end up being or not.
But
Dragon Dia lost, but that was about it. So it had a bit of a theme to it on that. So you got, and of course the favorites being upset, Hiromu and Desperado both losing. So,
but there's a predictability to that, is what I'm saying. And I felt like night 2 was a little bit more like, okay, we've introduced these guys. Some of them got their wins. You know, like we kind of like we got the board going, and then I don't know. Night 2 to me was just fine, and so we'll go.
So tell us about the matches from night 2.
All right, so we had Kevin Knight and Blake Christian. We kind of touched on that one already with both of them just having a really great performance. We had Akira and Ninja Mac, which, you know, Akira has come out looking strong. And this was when I looked at it and saw Ninja Mac like, okay, you're not just a guy. And I don't mean that in like a dismissive way, but this was where I was like, okay, I'm going to really start paying attention to what you're doing in these matches.
Did you know Ninja Mac was in Cirque du Soleil before this tournament? I did not.
I did not, but that was quite the reveal right there.
Pretty cool.
Hayata versus Clark Connors. I mean, we've seen Hayata from the All Together shows for the last couple of years. We talked about it. It kind of reminds you of a little bit of Jeff Hardy in a way. Maybe in the good ways, not the bad ways. Yeah. But you know, this match was also just, I liked it. I liked it a lot. And then these two, I thought this was a strong showing for both of them that highlighted both their strengths. TJP and Kanemaru was a ridiculous match. Yes, we have 10 matches on the card, and we need to tighten up the show a little bit. So TJP got punked out almost immediately by Kanemaru, and I would be lying if I didn't enjoy it. We got Dragon Dia versus Taiji Ishimori, and these guys are fast.
Very fast.
These guys are very, very fast. If you want to see New Japan speed, this is what this was. Bushi and Teton, you can imagine every time they meet, it's a classic, and this was no different. Kushida and Sho, we talked about the hoverboard walk stylings and Kushida getting a win over him previously. This is worth making time for. And then Desperado and Kosei Fujita.
Fantastic.
My goodness. People are going to be talking about this one. And I don't know if this or Hiromu versus Doki was better.
Yeah, they were both excellent matches. Those are the two that I had as my favorite two from the night, and they were some of the better matches in the tournament right there. So loved it, and loved that Doki got the win too. And I just think it's been healthy for the whole division to see stuff like that. So Fujita, even though he lost to Despe, and then the Hiromu Doki stuff, just excellent matches.
Doki feels like he is arrived and is on a different plateau and level than he was like a year ago. Like he is a contender in the division, and matches like this help cement that.
Been 5 years since Doki arrived in New Japan. If you remember, the reason he was there is because just before Super Juniors that year, it was 2019, El Desperado broke his jaw in a match. And so he was brought in as a late replacement to join Suzuki-gun. And that's where we first saw Doki. As part
opportunity knocked, and he hasn't looked back. We talked about this match too. Kevin Knight and Kosei Fujita, both two early candidates for, breakout stars in this.
We're on to night 3 now, by the way.
This is the night 3 and night 4 were only 5 matches because they were Walker Stewart is en route. We're going to get back to the 10 match cards, but there were a a couple of smaller cards with a few pre-show matches, and then the 5-match A block and B block. So, night in Fujita, we had Blake Christian and Kanemaru. We had Teton and Hayata. We had TJP and Clark Connors. This was the one where it's like, oh man, this is not looking good for TJP after this match.
Yeah, losing to Clark Connors there is a symbol that they were really putting him behind the 8 ball.
And then Desperado and Bushi. This match was a little bit funny. When Desperado came out to the match, I felt like he was just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this one tonight. And then he came out and had a really good match. And then,
night 4. Oh, we're on to night 4 after that, aren't we?
Sure. We got night 4 right here. We got Kushida and Francisco Akira. We talked about this earlier about the hoverboard walk. These two had an athletic match, and I felt like I was watching Kushida from 10 years earlier when he was wrestling this match. If you like 2010 Kushida, this is a match for you. Doki and Drilla Maloney, exactly what you thought this match would be, and it is that match. We talked about the Ninja Mac and Show. This was the shenanigans match with Murashima getting caught up in a Ninja Mac mask and basically jobbed out before the actual match happened. This was also a fantastic match. Hiromu Takahashi and Dragon Dia. Speed kills. Hiromu, I think, won, right?
Yeah, Hiromu won. This is where he finally got on the board right there, and I expect him to go on a bit of a run now, but a heck of a good match, and Dragon Dia is just fun to watch.
Yeah, he is one of those guys that is definitely talent of higher recognition coming forward. And then we had Robbie Eagles and Taiji Ishimori, and I feel like Robbie Eagles took kind of a step back in the last few years. He wasn't quite prominent, and he had a really good run in the Best of Super Juniors 3 or 4 years ago, but he hasn't just really had an opportunity, and he is doing his best to reestablish himself here, and I think he's doing a great job. Taiji Ishimori, another day in the office for this guy. He doesn't break a sweat. This is fine for him, and I'm amazed every time I see him just kill it without trying. So what do you think?
Well, I think my favorite matches from night 4 were the Hiromu Dragon Dia match and Akira versus Kushida. I thought those were really entertaining matches, and overall fairly good. I mean, the preview tags are the last 2 nights are even less than usual. I
went right past them. I had no time to watch. I had to fit all of these matches in like the themes of my life, so I didn't even watch the pre-show, and I figured they didn't even matter.
These felt very, very house showy. Very, very house showy. So, and looking ahead at the coming tournament matches on Saturday, May 18th, they're back in Tokyo at the S-Forta Arena in Hachioji. 10 matches again, so not one block and preview tags. This is all 10 matches, and some of them include Hiromu versus Sho. So we're going to see if Hiromu's streak continues and if he can get one over on the champion. Desperado against Kevin Knight. That'll be great. Akira versus Ishimori, same thing. And again, Ishimori, like undefeated so far. Is Akira the one that's going to tip the scales? And Bushi versus TJP. Both of them going into this match absolutely scoreless in this tournament so far. Somebody has to pick up a victory, and it's going to tell a big story about how the rest of that block is going to go. And then Tuesday, they move on to Hyogo. That one's back to preview tags and block A action. So that's TJP versus Fujita, Bushi versus Connors, Christian versus Hayata, Knight versus Teton. It'll be really good. And Desperado against Kanemaru. Then they're back Wednesday before we see you again in Osaka at the Edion Arena. That one's 10 tournament matches again. So for a little while, a few days, in fact, there will be more block A matches than B matches. So everyone's going to have one more match in block A than the folks in block B. And then a little later on, we'll get another one that's just block B, and they'll even up again. But for a little while, A is going to be ahead. 10 tournament matches in Osaka. The highlights: Doki versus Sho, TJP against Blake Christian, Hiromu against Akira, and Teton against Kosei Fujita. That is, it's listed as being Edion Arena. So I don't know if that's going to be in the big room or that little convention hall they usually use. Sounds like they might be using the big room for it. We'll find out.
Who knows? But I'm having fun with the Best of the Super Juniors, man, and keep the good times rolling until we get till we get into the bullshit of Dominion and Forbidden Door.
We're going to know a lot more next week about where this is headed. We'll start to
Yeah,
see who's falling off, who's picking up steam, and then we can take a look going forward into that. So again, we're getting we found out we're getting Fantasticamania type of thing going on with
back in my hometown. Like,
Yeah,
it'll be down the street from me. I was like, cool. I guess I'll just walk on over.
very, very good. That's a lot of fun.
It's in the middle of G1, so we're not getting any G1 level talent. This is purely CMLL and like Rocky Romero and guys like that, and I'm fucking here for it. Let's have some fun.
I mean, if you've been lucky enough to watch some of those matches, shows from Arena Mexico this year, that company is absolutely on fire. Great stuff. So exciting stuff.
All right, Steven, take us home.
Next week, we will be back to talk more about the results of the Super Junior tournament. Any news that comes up in the meantime, we'll be keeping an eye out. King of Pro Wrestling stipulations, any more matches for Dominion, all kinds of things happening there. So with that in mind, thank you, everyone who watched us live. Thanks for everyone who's listening to this later. I'm Stephen Conway. With me, of course, Jeremy Finestone. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Peace out.